It was clear, though, that there was one group that was really shocked, which was the market. And I think there's a good reason for that. One is they're not technologists. But the other aspect is one of the shocking things or the surprising things, I should say. One of the surprising things about DeepSeek was the technology aspect, which some technologists said was more engineering than scientific breakthrough. But the other issues were both the dramatic uptake of it in the marketplace. That came as a surprise. It very rapidly became the number one AI app being downloaded. And the fact that it had a different business model. We'd sort of gotten accustomed to, we see what the dominant business model is here, and it's invest heavily in horsepower around computing, and then sell the product. Where this was both open sourced and leaned more into the learning aspect, less into just the horsepower of the chips. And so what you had was sort of a surprise on several fronts. There's the technology side, there's the adoption and scale up side, and there's the business model side. And for the marketplace, it called into question an awful lot of what was going on when that hit. Now, you can argue that they shouldn't have been surprised. This is actually pretty normal behavior for an early emerging technology like this. It's very normal for there to be surprises on technology, big shifts in adoption, new business models coming to the forefront. This is normal in the early stages of an emerging technology. What's not normal, or what we're not used to, I should say, is for an emerging technology industry to already have spawned companies worth hundreds of billions of dollars and having hundreds of millions of users. We're used to emerging technology industries being small, and then once they sort of settle down, they get big. In this case, still a very, very fluid marketplace on the technology front, on the adoption front, on the business model front, and yet a very, very large industry. And that's a characteristic of our digital world. For the industry, it means you can't sit on your laurels. It means there are going to be these kind of disruptive shocks. The disruption, the kind that Clayton Christian talked about, are going to be characteristic of this industry for a while. In addition to the kind of disruption we see that comes from shifts in what's still, as I said, a highly evolving technology. But for the U.S. government, I think it's important to think about the implication for this industry, in that for this industry to do what we want for the U.S. in terms of national security, in terms of economic growth, in terms of jobs created, we need to win on all three of the fronts I mentioned earlier. We need to be successful with a winning technology. We need to be successful in getting the adoption at scale. And we need the companies, because we're relying on our companies, where the government is not building this industry. We're relying on the companies to be able to make money. So we're relying on winning business models too. And so for the industry, it's not going to be enough to win on the technology. This is not an if you build it, they will come, it will take care of itself. That works in the very early stages of an industry for a brief period of time, but those are then disrupted by somebody who is leveraging what you learned and how to build it and getting a new business model to build it with. And so I think that's probably the greatest lesson for the industry is the degree of uncertainty and evolution that's still in store for the industry on all three of those fronts. It's not just a technology race. You need to anticipate the kind of disruption we've just seen is going to be important as well. It's going to be important not to overreact as government. I don't think the government has. I'm just saying that going forward, it's going to be important to continue not to overreact. We are going to see these kind of things in this kind of fluid environment. And I think that's an important element of it. But also, I think Deloitte's Tech Trends 2025 talked about how one way to think about AI right now, one that's the focus, is the trajectory of AI. But we also need to be thinking about the trajectory of those products that are going to be fueled and underpinned by AI. AI is going to be transforming and accelerating innovation in a lot of other industries. So when government thinks about how to handle these fluid industries, it's important not to think about them in silos. There's going to be a set of interactions. The AI acts as an accelerator for some others, but they in turn are going to be critical to AI's future. And so as the government thinks about this, it's important that their focus not be too narrow, and that they be patient with and adaptable with a fluid emerging industry. They also have that wider aperture. The disruption that we're seeing in AI, I think we can anticipate in quantum, but it's important to remember that these different technologies differ in terms of their stage of maturity. Quantum is still much more in research labs and research papers than it is in prototypes out of the marketplace that people are downloading. And so, if we saw this kind of massive disruption at this moment in time in quantum, it wouldn't have quite the showing up on the internet as the hot topic that we saw with AI. Um, but also, adoption is going to be important with quantum. It may not have the same sort of everybody's going to download it and use it to make funny pictures sort of thing that we see with Gen AI. But leading in adoption will be important for those technologies as well. And so those are going to be important. The space race has been cited more in relationship to DeepSeek than I think I've seen it in the media in probably a decade or more. And it's a useful metaphor. It's quite apt, but it sheds interesting light both for ways in which it is similar and an apt metaphor, and in ways in which it's different. In the ways that it's similar, um, uh, DeepSeek, like Sputnik, had that same sort of surprise effect. It also impacted markets. It impacted companies. It generated a lot of anxiety. A lot of folks and a lot of technologists at that time said, "We're not really that surprised." So there's a nice parallel there. The way it spurred the country to action, I think, is a hopefully a useful metaphor, a useful lesson we can take from that. I think these technologies, and not just AI, but the largest of emerging technologies, are an important part of America's future, and I think are well worth the attention that gets drawn to them. It's, I think, an important distinction in the space race, and may get a little bit lost in this discussion in the media lately. Is the space race was U.S. USSR. Recent events have really been US China. So it's easy to draw a parallel. But with emerging technologies, I think that parallel can be a little bit deceptive. Yes, this time around, it was a US China thing. That's going to be that often in the future. But if we focus too heavily on that, we're going to be blindsided and have some real surprises, which are going to be when India disrupts on these emerging technologies. There's huge investment there. I think the EU and the UK in emerging technologies is a player, another one on the global stage that I think we can see expect some disruptions from. And so the fairly narrow, our integrated set of producers against Russia's integrated set of producers is the wrong model. We're going to have a more diverse set of producers in the U.S. exploring these markets. There are going to be more places than just us and one other country. Going to be a more diverse set of producers in those countries. And so I think the space race is a useful metaphor, but I wouldn't say, oh, this is one of those. I'd say it's what can we learn from the space race that we can apply to this evolving fluid network of players in these important emerging technologies.